holding slide? Cool, thank you. All right, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, friends of Frisbee here on the field and at home on the couch watching us live. Welcome to the third match of the first day of the New Zealand Tertiary Ultimate Championships here in beautiful Kirikiriroa. An amazing matchup ahead of us between the mighty Massey Chargers and the Otago University Ultimate Club Toroa. My name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kisa Valenti.
And we are your eyes and ears here on the ground in order to provide you context and commentary for some of the best ultimate that the country has to offer. Kisa, talk us through what's happening. We've got Otago University Torua here on the left side of the screen.
Yes, we've got a beautiful sunny afternoon. Started off the day really still, but the winds picked up a bit. It'll be interesting to see how both of these teams field the conditions. Neither team from the Wellington area, which boasts our best training conditions in the Frisbee nation. Looking at a match defense coming from Massey Chargers, trying to put the pressure on.
Great work up that far sideline, a big forehand, and a layout grab.
Easy goal.
Comfortable score for Otago, OUUC Toroa. Great work on that offense. Great bid to keep that alive. I think that was probably the clutch moment of that point. Could have potentially been a turnover and an opportunity for Massey Chargers to work back, but it didn't go down that way. Massey Chargers now to come out on offense with the Otago University Ultimate Club Torua. We can see them there all taking the line for a bit of communication and probably some sideline support.
We've got a bit gustier conditions than we saw this morning, with the wind coming from the left to right side of your screen. It's not very consistent. It's here in spurts, which makes it really difficult for throwers both down and upwind. If OUUC is looking to score, they're going to be fighting against the wind, which can lift the disc and take it on some interesting trajectories, but equally the Massey Chargers are going to have to meter their throws against that strong gusty downwind at their backs.
Absolutely. We saw that on the first pull of the last point. Bianca Mercer had the disc for Massey, put it up very, very high, and you can see how much that faded back towards their defensive zone. A nice amount of roll is exactly what they want. It's going to slow down the Massey Chargers offense. Josh Cook and Bianca Mercer looking to initiate that offense against a Toroa zone. We can see some of their players are looking more to occupy space than they are necessarily marking players.
This patient lateral movement on the disc here is really crucial for Massey Chargers to be able to work it up the field. If the zone defense gets to stay in their position, they've got the space around the disc locked down. But if Massey can manage to move the disc around, get in the midst of their zone, that's what's going to allow them to cut through it.
We're seeing a lot more of these Massey players get involved in working the disc than we've seen in some of the other matches. We've got Cook, Pellman, Mercer, Reddings all working in and out to try and work their way around this Torua zone. Mercer going to ground to keep that outside the hands of the defense. Pellman with a great roll. I think Toroa must have got a hand on that. It started to wobble out a little bit. And there it happens. Some amazing work by the Otago defense. Max Benter-Lynch with the great block and a huge moment now for Toroa.
Liddell is looking to reset. Oh, great patience there. OUC sees their shot and takes it.
Josh Cooper with the score for Otago. Great work as the game goes 1-1. And an upwind point as well. Mild correction there. It's actually 2-0 in favor of Toroa. We're just going to adjust that scoreboard shortly. some great work. So as we were saying, and we've mentioned in previous games, the wind has been quite gusty, but directionally has been reasonably consistent, moving from the left side of your screen during our main coverage towards the right. So that's a huge moment for Toroa as they managed to work against the wind, which is one of the most difficult things to do when it is particularly strong. So great work by them to put 2 points up over the Massey Chargers so early on in the game.
A lot of chatter coming from the OUC line. It's usually a good sign that a zone is coming, which should be a smart call, as the other team's going to have to be working upwind and their range of throws will be limited.
Great, Scott. One of Otago's probably one of their most dominant frisbee exports. You can see him parked up at the back of the field. Does a really good job dominating that deep space. He's got a really good closing speed and a really good read on the disc. And so he'll be directing a lot of the zone's pressure. Quick turn generated there by Matthew Whitaker. It's exactly what that zone is looking to do. Callum Shimon picks up the disc. Resets to Graydon Scott. Works to the far sideline.
A lot of good patient movement between the handlers here. Let's see if the downfield can open up at all.
And again, it's similar as we've seen already that, great chase. It's not going to come off. Massey with an opportunity to work back the field. We've seen that quite a lot, that when the handlers are doing a huge amount of moving to work around a really pressure defense, we find that the downfield can look quite static because those players are sort of waiting for that opportunity to strike.
It takes a lot of experience to know when the movement between the handlers is going to translate into movement down the field. And since we are at these tertiary championships, perhaps the downfields don't know what it looks like when their opening is coming. And so we can see kind of the same thing going on for Massey here. Really great movement between the handlers. Downfield a little bit more static. Maybe not seeing the gaps there, maybe not moving the defense enough. Beautiful cut through the zone. Unfortunate drop.
Great look by Jonas Holman. The wind picks it up. There's a nice low release to try and get around there, but the disc lifted and it bobbled out of the hands of the intended receiver, giving Otago another opportunity to work a short field. Slightly overthrown despite a great attempt to keep that in hand. We can see that kind of loose zone structure that's looking to target that space far more than it is to shut down those individual player matchups. Nice little contribution from the commentary booth to get the disc back in play. Graydon puts a huge number up. Just overthrown again. That little adjustment in the wind, that downwind's going to carry that disc a little bit further. Some great technical throws on display. It's just those little bits of sort of miscommunication and just minor errors that are preventing those from being really game-opening completions.
Yeah, that lovely outside-in channel on the sideline here is really tempting, especially to a way cut, running away from the disc and towards the sideline. Beautiful channel there, thrower's breeze, but it's really finicky to get the right curve, the right speed on the disc. As it is going downwind, it does pick up a bit of heat and it can be harder to get your hands on in the end zone.
Again, trying to keep that disc low to prevent the wind from adding that defensive pressure. And it doesn't come away, so Otago with another opportunity, looking to go 3 up over the Massey Chargers. Huge amount of pressure. It looks like a clean play. Great bid by Otago to try and close that out of the score. You could see all of their players were stacked up in the end zone trying to run a good isolation. It's that exact win that we're talking about. Just anything other than a perfect throw is going to get punished. And Otago have shown that they're a team that are capable of capitalizing on those little errors. Holman pinned down on the far sideline. Manages to squeeze the last of that little space out to get the disc to Cook. The zone applies pressure, but the huck goes long. Finds ground. Good territory, but not the option that Massey need when they're down by a couple of points already. Josh Cook with a great run through D. They're just traveling a little bit slow in the wind, giving him an opportunity to close through.
It's such a delicate balance of moving the disc quickly against this zone set to avoid them getting set up, but not moving the disc so quickly that you're being impatient. I think Massey is doing a really good job of balancing those two forces as they move up the field.
Big swing from Reddings across to Cook. Holman clearing out of that handle space to widen that up. But it's still the same three.
Foul call on the field.
So just a reminder, because you don't see any refs out here, that Ultimate is a self-officiated sport. The players take the responsibility. Great turn there, great defensive awareness to generate that turn for Otago. But a self-officiated sport, the players take it upon themselves to learn the rules. Graydon Scott puts up a massive huck. And it's a little bit on the long side. Players take it upon themselves to learn the rules, make the calls and resolve them on the field as best as possible. Try and keep the game moving as smoothly as possible. Players take a lot of ownership and a lot of pride over their ability to communicate with one another to ensure that those calls get resolved as quickly as possible. A lot of pressure from this Otago zone. We're just seeing the Massey Chargers handler set, those same three, Jonas Holman, Josh Cook, Ronnie Redding, is just getting pushed back further and further and further. And as the wind keeps changing, it's not going to take a lot for an error to result in a goal. But Holman puts the long shot up over the head of the intended receiver, Ling.
Let's go, Brad. Let's go, Amelia.
Amelia Mance gets the reset quickly, bounces the disc back to Graydon Scott. Great work up the near sideline, a left backhand off the fingertips.
Sit up, sit up. That's all good, Brad.
Holman puts a hammer across the field to find Reddings. Still trying to work through this zone. There's so much player movement in terms of defense. It's closing lanes as quickly as it's opening them. Holman puts up a rip. Purely territorial, just hoping to play or stop playing in his own defensive end zone.
This strategy is known as huck and play D. Massey's banking on the fact that they can get a turnover close to their end zone so they don't have to fight against the defense and the wind.
But again, setting that defense slowly gives Torua an opportunity to work back those yards reasonably quickly, just stringing together a few passes, comfortably getting back to the halfway point. Callum Shimon finds Amelia Mance on the near sideline. A close bit, a little bit squeaky. Holman sends it again. Ronnie Reddings is going deep. A great take. The zipper man lets loose. Manages to find Ronnie right on the doorstep. Josh Cook takes the reset, calls a timeout.
Better move, very smart.
Absolutely.
Very smart call from Josh Cookie there.
We are just about to hit 15 minutes into the 75-minute game, a game to 13. The score being only 2-0. It's important to remember as well that in Ultimate, substitutions can only occur at the conclusion of a point or in the event of an injury. So the 7 players that are on the field at the moment will be playing the entirety of the point unless something, some extenuating circumstances occur. So considering that it has been quite a long point, we're looking at sort of 7, maybe 8 minutes of just running around, making that switch between offense and defense.
Yeah, lots of back and forth here, but catching your breath isn't the only reason to call a timeout right on the line here. What the Massey Chargers are probably doing right now is coming up with a static play, so the disc is going to be counted down and tapped in, which is essentially releasing the pause button from gameplay, and they are allowed to set up wherever they want. So what I think we'll see from Massey is some kind of structured end zone play to hopefully seal the deal on this point.
Okay, but while these two teams take their time out and just get themselves settled, we will take a short break and be back with you very soon. Thanks to University Tertiary Sport New Zealand for helping us here at Ulti TV bring you the Tertiary Ultimate Championships in New Zealand. Here we have a great face-off between Otago, Toroa and the mighty Massey Chargers.
Now when we come back from a timeout, this is a stoppage of play. We're going to see Massey Chargers on offense set up in the structure they want, while defense stands and waits. That's where we see a little cluster of Toroa players at the front of the end zone there. After offense has decided that they're set, they'll give the signal to Torua, who will set up their defense. Once everyone's happy, the play will begin.
And so as you pointed out earlier, Kisa, that they'll be looking to run a static play, and as we can see, we've got 3 handlers, so players probably a bit more confident or perhaps even aggressive with the disc, depending on your perspective, outside of the zone, looking to be able to move the disc around and attack the weakest point of the Toroa defense. The remainder of our players are all stacked in a vertical line towards the back of the end zone to maximize the amount of room they have to potentially attack and put a score on the board. Josh Cook with the disc, puts one high and up. Brought down beautifully by Julia Ling. A great take there and a big fake spike to celebrate Massey putting one on the board, making sure that they do not need to eat any bagels straight after the lunch break. Disc a little high. Ronnie Redding's looking to close down on it. Just there as support, making sure that Ling can run through and get that disc cleanly. Well done to Massey for putting that one on the board. Now they have the arduous task of coming out on defense, but they do have the benefit of the wind at their backs, meaning that Toroa will have to work against that wind if they want to score.
Blair, if you were on Toroa right now, what kind of offense would you be calling?
Well, Kisa, that's a great question. I think considering that we're dealing with an upwind battle, longer shots are probably not going to be the best option unless you've got a lot of confidence. Now, the Toroa side do have a lot of strong throws. Graydon Scott in particular, he's known for being able to play really well in the wind. But in terms of offense, something that utilizes a lot of shorter undercuts towards the disc for those easy throws, and seeing those handlers and those other players accelerate out of those throws to try and chain together a bunch of shorter passes up the field. Those shorter passes that only need to be 2-3 meters, but trying to keep the disc low, which you can avoid when you're not taking those long options, can keep it out of some of the worst of the wind. That said, knowing what the Massey defense is capable of, they might come down with a zone, and that can really do a good job of throwing off the rhythm of trying to string together those lots of little passes to work up the field.
A little chaos on the line here. We have different calls being made for the gender matchup. When you see players with their arms straight out, that signifies female matchup majority. And when their arms are on their head, that is a male matchup. We've finally sorted out who needs to be on the field and where, and a huge poll comes up from Bianca Mercer.
So we do see the Massey players come down in the defensive zone. It doesn't appear to be slowing them down at all, as Graydon Scott puts a big shot up the midfield for a comfortable score.
For a goal. Oh yes, we love to see the enthusiasm. Now, in that point, it looked like Massey pulled out at an arrowhead zone, which is really similar to what Toroa was playing against them. That might be how they managed to break through so quickly for a nice, clean point there.
Yeah, that is always one of the perils of practicing a zone so often, is that your offense adapts very, very well to it. And if an opposition team tries to throw that down on you in a game, it just feels a little bit like a practice, sort of a warm-up. And so depending on the solidity of that zone and how coherent it is, can make a huge difference as to whether or not the offense struggles against it or not. 3-1 in favor of Toroa now, with a great mid-line drive from Graydon Scott.
We can see Abby Liddell at the desk, import from Wellington. She is not phased at all by this win, and you'll see her typically in the handler set with confident throws, confident grabs.
There's the signal for readiness, mirrored now by the Massey side. Nice, long, low pull, not fielded by any Massey players nearby, which is going to slow them down a little bit. But they're quick to get those first two passes off, working against that zone. Josh Cook, Tyson Pellman, Bianca Mercer, just weaving back and forth across the front of that zone, not really making a lot in the way of distance downfield. They're not gaining too many yards from their play. The key thing is they are maintaining position. They're not forcing anything just yet.
Mercer with a pass straight through the middle of the zone. This is going to be really good for Massey if they can keep the momentum going, keep the defense on their back feet.
Olena Kreshcheshin with a great internal cut to keep that disc in field and then pass back to those handlers to allow them to continue that hard work. Pellman finds Cook. Looks to fake a hammer, decides against it. Instead, keeps moving the disc just a little bit backwards, waiting for those opportunities. Bianca Mercer is tall and very athletic, but her limbs are not quite long enough to get there and keep that disc in hand. So possession will go back to Toroa. Simon on the far sideline. And Liddell bouncing the disc off Max Benter Lynch to find Amelia Mance. Called just outside of the end zone. Hugo Swinson finds Abby Liddell. Some great work by Toroa to keep that disc moving up and down the field. Abby Liddell got, what, every second touch on that point?
I reckon that was an Abby point.
That was an Abby point. Well done. The score now going 4-1 in favor of Toroa over Massey Chargers. An upward break opportunity for Toroa to potentially widen the score, but a great downward moment for Massey Chargers to put another one on the board and take a bit of the momentum back for themselves. We're going to get to see that again. Abby, quick reset. One jab step, comes back up line for Swinson to throw an easy short-range forehand for a nice score. Some great vision and just great frisbee nous being able to pull that one off, recognizing when the defense is a little out of position, a little off balance, maybe was trying to take in too much information at once, and just creating those little blindside opportunities for a nice, comfortable score. Big rip as the pull comes up from the Toroa defense. Fielded comfortably by Mercer. Ling. Disc comes across towards Holman. Back to Ling. Holman bounces it through to Bianca Mercer. Mercer signaling for a cut to come, trying to open something up, goes past the defense. Jenny Ling with the disc, threads one through, back to Holman, bouncing straight to Mercer. Tim Horton on the far sideline now, around the mark.
This quick movement by Massey Chargers is really allowing them to work the disc up the field effectively. When the disc goes backwards, we call that a dump, and what we've just seen, that lateral pass, is called a swing. What they're really utilizing well in this possession is what we call dump, swing, swing. Move the disc back and get it across the field, far away from the defensive zone set. Makes it a lot harder for them to keep up.
Jonas Holman drops an absolute buzzsaw of a hammer and slips through the hands of the intended receiver. Oh, the call's been made.
Looks like one of the Massey Chargers is off the field with an injury call, tending to what appears to be a Charlie horse. In the case of an injury substitution, there's a stoppage of play. The injured player is replaced by a teammate of theirs, and play resumes. And the disc is live.
Great work up that far sideline. Swinson puts it through the middle. The turn happens. Holman sends one, big long rip. Touches down out of bounds. But we've talked a little bit about Huck and D, and this is probably the best place for that to work. The disc is going to come in right in front of the cone, the front corner of the end zone on the right-hand side of your screen. There's a great opportunity here for an aggressive Massey defense to shut down a lot of those options and force a low percentage throw, generating a turnover here. Swinson manages to find the disc back in the center for Bridget Legg, and it's overthrown. Braden Scott is quick, but he's not enough in that moment to get the disc. Holman picks it up. Ronnie Redding's trying to make a big cut. It's covered too tightly by the defense. He returns for the disc on the near sideline.
A travel's been called on the thrower.
Jonas Holman with a strong up the line cut, has to leave his feet to get the disc, but he brings it in very, very close, drops a massive hammer wide over the other side.
It's just too bad there was no receiver anywhere near that disc.
And it's one of those tough things when you're down by a few points, the points are starting to drag a little bit, the fatigue setting in, that decision making starts to suffer. And that's when the team that's able to stay focused tends to walk away with a game. Bridget Legg with the disc now. Marked by Ling.
We're seeing some really nice patience in the handler space from the Toroa team. Massey has got this frantic defense on, but it does not seem to phase them at all. A huge hop up to the end zone.
Beautifully brought down by Josh Cooper. That takes us to 5-1 Toroa over the Massey Chargers. Looks like a timeout has been called, which again could be by the Massey Chargers side to try and disrupt that momentum. Toroa being 4 points up, probably really want to keep playing. They're obviously fired up, their engines are going. What they're doing is working, and so this is a tactical move potentially by the Massey Chargers to just slow them down, force them to cool down a little bit as they get maybe a little bit on board as a team, try and resettle, think what is and what isn't working, how can we tighten things up, how can we start putting some more points on the board. Now it is a game to 13, which means we will take halftime when the first team to score 7 points does so. Otago Toroa then are only 2 breaks away from taking half and the psychological advantage that comes along with it. Massey Chargers a long walk ahead of them, but still anybody's game. It's not an insurmountable score at all. We will be back with you very shortly after the conclusion of this timeout. Okay, so we are back as Toroa are first to break after timeout. And they've got their 7 players taking the line already to come down on defense. They have the wind at their backs, which means Massey Chargers, as they come out on offense, hoping to put their 2nd point on the board for the game, are going to be working against the wind. It's not a great situation for them to want to be in, particularly as we've seen a lot of their larger throws, their sort of bigger, higher risk attempts haven't come off. They've either been overthrown or they've been thrown to space that wasn't being targeted by a receiver. So we'll see what adjustments they've made during that timeout, see if they're able to push Toroa a little bit harder than they have been so far. There's quite a lot of strong players on this Chargers side. We've got a decent amount of national and club level representation on this team. It looks like they just need something to bring it all together so that they can bring the game to the Toroa side.
Being flexible is going to be really important for the Chargers in this instance. The OUC Toroa hasn't been doing much differently because what they are doing is working. If Massey manages to figure out their game, work out some sort of offensive tactic to get around the arrowhead zone they keep throwing, they'll be able to turn the tide of this game.
The signal for readiness is given. Max Benta-Lynch with the pull. Fielded by Pellman. Cook early. Couple of little give-go movements to try and get the disc moving.
These first few yards are really important while the defense is still coming and setting up. You can get a free 10, 20 meters if you just work the disc quickly up the field.
And now changing direction. Nice little inside break, and again, targeting that midfield over and over. Pelman driving the offense here right now. A lot of his movement being the thing that gets the disc past the defense.
This give-go is looking really effective for Massey. I hope they can keep it up.
Cook on the far sideline, back to Pelman. They're within range. Hammer across the top to Ronnie Reddings. Swings back across the front of the zone.
Really working this zone up front. It's hard work playing anywhere in a zone, but especially up in the front where you're chasing the disc the entire time. It's basically like sprint training. And with all these lateral passes that Massey is putting up, they are really grinding them hard.
Reddings, Cook, Pelman really working the disc at the moment, trying to develop something downfield for them to be able to close out the point. Slowly chipping away, slowly walking forwards, a few meters at a time. He'll turn around, look to find Josh Cook, maybe. And a great cut, but it's not enough to generate that continuation. But Pelman is able to sneak through, cutting through that wall at the front of the zone. Some great work here by the Massey Chargers. Again, hitting that disc at just the right tempo to allow them to chip through that zone with the steps that they're allowed to use to slow down.
That was some lovely footwork by Chargers number 55. The lines that you can see painted on the field in black are considered out, so some cheeky footwork like that is often what it takes to get the point, and the Chargers have done that. Did anyone besides the handlers touch the disc in that point?
I believe one. We had one player outside of that handler set touch the disc on that point. Which again can make it a little bit frustrating as a downfield player. If that's something that the line has agreed to play before the point, it's totally fine, but it can still be quite frustrating knowing that you're just milling around trying to keep your defender busy. It makes it a little bit harder to cut with intent, which is one of the things that I guess defines a great cutter, is making sure that they are committing and shifting the defense. But
strategically speaking, it is good teamwork by the whole team, because clearly that's gained them the upwind point. So if I'm a cutter in that field, I don't mind milling around if that's what it takes to score the goal.
Plus, it's a nice opportunity to rest your legs after some really, really long points that we've seen so far.
And you can enjoy the beautiful scenery here in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton.
So Massey Chargers finally putting their second point on the board, doing some great work, just working their way around that zone, looking back, looking to make quick cuts up through the front wall of that zone, and just taking those steps 2, 3 at a time, widening up the field, using those opportunities to get 5, 6 meters upfield, and slowly but surely managing to put that one away. So Bianca Mercer with the disc for the pull for the Massey Chargers on the downwind. Toroa going to have to answer with an upwind point of their own. Mans choosing not to field the pull. Liddell on the near sideline with a big forehand, eaten up by Brandon Jones.
Great option taking there, but perhaps Liddell has had an uncharacteristic snafu with the wind. Looks like the disc floated a bit more than intended and allowed the defense to catch up there.
Ling trying to cut to that open side, marked very, very heavily. So Jones has to come through and clean that one up. Ling finds Ling on the near sideline.
Foul call on the field. Accepted easily. So that means since the defense has agreed they fouled, the disc goes to the receiver as if no foul had occurred.
Great use of the width by Massey to try and spread things around, trying to keep that defense guessing. Holman with the disc, just outside the red zone. Sends a dead straight blade. Graydon Scott, the merest of interceptions required to stop Brandon Jones from picking that up one for a score. Scott again with the disc. Finds Abby Liddell. To Cooper, back to Scott. Some really clinical work, but they've made most of the width of the field anyway. Amelia Mance in the red zone. Not quite in.
Lovely patience here from Toroa, and it has paid off for them.
Max Benter Lynch with the score by the looks. Great little cheeky cut through the midfield. Manages to walk away with it. So we are now 6-2 in favor of Toroa. 1 point away from taking halftime. We'll see them all take the field again, providing that sideline support as Massey players slowly walk out to take the line for an offensive point. Again, another one upwind. They were able to do it before. They focused the disc movement through their handlers. But in terms of the Toroa defense at this point, what you want is a break and to take it to half and just put this half away. What would you be looking to do on defense, Kisa?
As Toroa, I think what they've been doing has been working really well, with the exception of the last offensive point by Massey. They seem to unlock the key to the zone by dragging the people up front near the disc, dragging them around and opening up some gaps. So if I was Toroa, I would be running the same defense with that in mind. They're going to be trying to move the defenders around the disc, and so I would be maybe holding my ground a bit more.
Yeah, that is going to be the key to Massey, as long as the Otago University Ultimate Club Torua, if they run that same zone structure, Massey have shown that they're able to move the disc around, and so it really comes down to how that zone structure is going to change in response to the Massey offense and how the Massey offense might change in response to that. Good pull with a nice amount of flow.
Nice quick defensive pressure here. It looks like we see a match look from the defense, which is an interesting choice. Maybe they thought to put the zone away. Massey's unlocked it. Let's go back to bread and butter. Toroa with the disc. Some lovely clinical vertical stack up the sideline here. And an easy goal for Toroa.
So that takes us to 7-2. Otago University Ultimate Club Toroa taking the first half in this game to 13. Here, our third stream game of the New Zealand Tertiary Ultimate Championships in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, against the mighty Massey Chargers. As always, my name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kisa Valenti.
And we will be back with you shortly for the second half of this exciting match. right, friends of Frisbee, welcome back to the second half of this, our third game on day one of the New Zealand Tertiary Ultimate Championships between the Massey Chargers and Otago University Ultimate Club Toroa. My name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kisa Valenti.
And we are so excited to bring you the second half after Otago Toroa put on an impressive performance to go up by 5, taking the first half 7-2. Putting Massey Chargers on the back foot. Massey Chargers are now going to be coming out on offense.
Really quick chase from defense on there. Made that first throw real difficult from Chargers.
Bianca Mercer gets the disc anyway. The timing there means 2 viable cuts got looked off. Exconde manages to get it. Big sprint downfield, but it's snatched up, eaten by Josh Cooper. And a quick break to go back the other way. Hugo Swinson with the disc. An unfortunate turn there as the disc comes through low. Nice laser beam from Swinson, but falls out of the hands of Rose Ursum. So an opportunity now. Josh Cook to pick up, finds Ronnie Reddings in the midfield. Puts a big forehand up. Just outside the reach of the intended receiver. Still a strong territorial option. Maybe not the intention, but it's always important to look on the bright side. This is going to be a difficult corner for the Toroa offense to work out of. There's a wind traveling from the left-hand side of the screen to your right. The long limbs of Bianca Mercer, the lot of experience that she's got in competitive ultimate. It's going to apply a huge amount of pressure. But an unmarked cut lets the Toroa side work their way out of that coffin corner.
Yeah, great movement.
Nice snatch from number 17, Katrin Ogilvie. Unfortunately, wasn't enough to keep the disc away from the Chargers. And another turn.
Josh Cook putting a big forehand, started to fade early, out of the hands of Brandon Jones. And it swings the other way, giving the Toroa an opportunity to keep working the disc. Graydon Scott puts one over Rose Ursum. Exconde having to get involved to close that one out. Looks like a reasonably...
Injury called by Ursum.
A clean bid, but a call made nonetheless. So Ursum will substitute. Looks like a sore wrist, which totally understandable. Some great defensive pressure there by the Massey Chargers. Elena Svitanovic to touch the ground. The disc is now live. The Massey offense can get set. Hopefully put another point on the board. Bianca Mercer to pick up and initiate. Exconde with a great undercut, but it's marked too close by the Toroa defense. Number 10, Ling for the Chargers, finds Ronnie Redding.
It's great to see a team using a horizontal stack on offense, but it can be difficult to get timing right with your teammates. I think that's what's making life hard for the Chargers at the moment.
Yeah, a great upline cut there by Joshua Cook. Pressured a bit too much, generating the turn. Toroa's Swinson to Svitanovic, but a pick has been called. So just a reminder, the players making the calls as a result of it ultimately being a self-officiated sport, but it's a non-contact sport, so players take it upon themselves to make sure that the lines that they use on the field are trying to avoid contact as much as possible. So if your line takes you through...
Oh, lovely curve on that disc.
Great work by Josh Cooper. If your line takes you through another player, then that causes a stoppage. Some great work there. Cooper to Swinson. Swinson to Whitaker to close out the point as we go 8-2. Toroa over the Massey Chargers.
being down 8-2 is a really tough mental place to be in as a sports team. I wonder what the Massey Chargers are saying to each other to keep that mindset positive so that they can claw back a few points in this game.
Oh, I don't know. I think 8-2 is one of the most dangerous scores in Ultimate. I wouldn't want to be the 8. That's when you start slacking off. That's when you start getting a little bit confident. And all of a sudden, 5-6 points in a row, swinging back the other way. We could see it. It's not impossible. It's happened before. Massey Chargers have done it before. Toroa have a very, very strong line, a really solid core of some really talented Frisbee players. But as you pointed out in the previous game that we saw with the University of Waikato side, there's a lot to be said for being scrappy. As we just come through the 55th minute. Scott with the disc. The ready signal given from Toroa, answered by Massey. The disc comes in. Huge pull.
Oh, and it's just rolled out the back of the end zone, which means that Chargers are allowed to take it at the front of the end zone. Back of the end zone off a pole is a very dangerous place to be, so that is lucky for them.
Hellman to Ling. To Finch, pressured heavily, tries to put up a hammer. The wind takes the flat edge of the disc and just carries it back. This is what Toroa want. Svetanovich to Liddell. Great work there. Shimon with the score. Now we go 9-2. Toroa up over Massey. Really precise, really clinical ultimate that we're seeing from the Toroa. Huge amounts of pressure on defense and just that really smart ability to work conservatively as they work the disc. They're not taking huge options, they're not taking big risks, and it seems to be paying off for them. The wind is picking up just a little bit. We can feel it in the booth.
At the beginning of the game, we had a strong upwind, downwind on the field from the left to the right of your screen, and now it's looking a bit more like a crosswind from the far to the near side of the field. So both the Chargers and Toroa are going to have to keep that in mind. The sideline closest to the camera is what we call the low side, the downwind side, and it's really difficult to play from that side of the field. So what both teams want to do, whoever's on offense, is to get it to the farther sideline where they'll have more of the field to play with. Lots of easier throws for them to be able to make.
Tyson Pellman puts a long one up, looking for Ling. No call made. Matthew Whitaker with a big flying block. Cooper with a great undercut.
Block for Ling, goal for Ling. That's bookends. Well done.
Absolutely. Great touch on that disc, means it goes to ground. Holman with the vision to get in there, get the disc, and get a quick break. 2v2, Massey come out on top. The game goes 9-3. So we see that again. Holman with a quick break, Ling with a quick cut. Goes a bit low, but it's clean. That is exactly what Massey needed to get their heads back in this game, to stay competitive. We're just about to hit the 1 hour mark. We have 75 minutes on the clock. The score currently 9-3 in favor of Toroa. Bit of last minute communication about their offensive strategy. We see the signal for readiness, the hand up on the Toroa side. Bianca Mercer, number 2 for the Massey Chargers with the disc. Gives the signal, the pull coming in. Long, low, and flat. Nice opportunity for the defense to get in, but the Massey Chargers looking a little bit sluggish. Big shot goes up, trying to find Abby Liddell in the deep space. Great score. Quick 2-3 passes max, putting one out on the board. Massey Chargers a little slow to respond on defense. They didn't really apply the kind of pressure that we've seen them put on previously. And that is one of the struggles when you have a point differential like this. With Toroa up by 7, can be really, really easy to resign yourselves to defeat, but it's important for Massey that they keep that fire burning, they keep pushing through for whatever the final score of this game is going to be. This might very well be the first game to 13 that we've had on stream all tournament so far. The previous matches have gone to soft cap. Now, in the case of a soft cap, when you hear a hooter on the stream, the point currently being played needs to be concluded. 1 needs to be added to the highest score, and then it is a flat race to that total. So if the hooter were to have gone during that point, we would play, we would add 1 to the highest score. So it would be 11, and we would be racing to 11. Now, we still have about another 15 minutes before that soft cap. A game to 13. So we'll see what the Toroa defense are capable of doing, knowing that they've got an upwind work.
Nice quick movement on the disc by Cook. Perhaps Massey's not as sluggish at this point as we saw last point. Got some lovely quick handler movement here.
Redding's on the near sideline. Find Horton. A little bit of miscommunication there, some cuts cutting into the same space. As you mentioned, Kisa, we're on the low side here. It's really, really tight. It narrows the field hugely, and that's what Toroa were looking for. They were able to capitalize. Max Benter Lynch with the block. Hugo Swinson to pick up. Quickly trying to get the disc off the sideline to Svitanovic.
Look at that quick swinging motion to the high side. That's smart offense. Massey does not want them on the high side, however, and you can see them forcing the throws towards this side of the screen. Again, the downwind, the low side.
Anderson for Massey nearly getting a bite of it. Long, nice floaty disc out. There's Max Benter Lynch again with the score. The cheeky elbow spike, putting Otago Toroa up by 8. 11-3, potentially a 2-point game now for Toroa if they're able to keep the pressure on, or a 10-point run for Massey to take away the win. There's that beautiful backhand, despite the wind, floating it out like it's nothing. Swinson to Benter Lynch for the score. The door slowly closing on the Massey Chargers. Still a few moments left for them to be able to jam a foot in and keep their opportunities of a successful Tertiary Ultimate Championships campaign alive. The signal for readiness. There's the pull. Very, very high, very long.
Lots of hang time on this one. That gives defense plenty of time to race down the field.
Still fielded by Pellman. Working with Cook to gain a few yards early. A nice hammer. Brandon Jones hoping for a more aggressive cut in the downfield to give them an option. Pellman again. Redding's on the near sideline. To Pellman, still working that sideline. Big hammer over the top. Jones underneath.
Massey with the goal.
But it's Reddings who comes down with it. Well, it looks like there might be a bit of confusion as to what the result is, whether or not there's a foul called.
I reckon it's a Charlie horse. Massey receiver still hanging on to the disc.
We get to see that again. Pellman with a huge hammer.
That definitely looks like possession. We can see a nice toe stretch on the field here. That's a calf cramp.
No, but a foul still called. So it looks as though the defense might have called that foul against the offense. If an offensive player had called a foul in that instance, considering that they retained possession, they probably would have retracted that. So the fact this hasn't yet been resolved.
It appears the foul has been contested, but an injury is called.
So with the foul being contested, we return to the last uncontested play, which would be Tyson Pellman in possession of the disc, right in front of the front corner of the end zone on the near sideline. So a contested foul will just reset things, maybe a minute or so, just before that last pass. It was an absolute ripper of a hammer, but now the defense are expecting it.
I don't know about you, but I'd like to see the same throw again.
It's always the right option, really, throwing the exact same throw a second time. But that is Tamara Anderson with the score. Great cut into the end zone, separation from the defender. Pellman seeing the option and having confidence in a little floaty backhand over the top of the defense. Able to close that one out. 4-11, still in favor of Otago Toroa. But nice to see the Massey Chargers fire hasn't yet gone out. Sorry, that's Abigail Dorr Wright with the score. Massey to come down on defense. We're going to see Bianca Mercer with the pull again, doing a huge amount of work for the Massey side in terms of defense. Torua offense. Only 6 minutes left in the game before we hit soft cap. 2 points away from a point cap victory. There it is, long and low. Fielded comfortably.
Massey's defense a little slow to get down on the disc. That allows Toroa to gain a lot of yards there.
Nice work floating that disc. Just making sure that those handlers who are doing a lot of the work in terms of moving the disc for Toroa have the option to do so. They've got comfortable catches, comfortable passes. Benta Lynch trying to make a great cut out of that handler space into the downfield. It doesn't make what they were hoping to happen, so he comes back under, trying to reinitiate that disc movement. Svitanovic with a one-handed grab. Out to Benta Lynch again. To a wide open Svitanovic just on the doorstep. Bianca Mercer stopping that quick goal from coming away.
A sliding catch from Toroa.
Yeah, despite the great pressure from the Ling, causing the disc to come a little bit out a little bit wonky. She's still able to keep it alive for Toroa.
Oh, and no continuation cut there. That's such a shame. When you're in the downfield, you want to be looking at what's developing around the throwers so that a nice window like this can happen. We're bouncing the disc back and forth, and you've got someone to receive.
But Amelia Mance is able to find Benta Lynch in the end zone anyway to close at that point, taking Otago within one of victory as we just pass into the 71st minute of our match. Now Toroa to come down on defense. A crucial point for the Massey Chargers. The rest of the game hinges on what they're able to do on offense in this point.
Blair, did you know there's 2 different ways to lose a game?
I did not, Kisa. What are the 2 ways to lose a game?
You can lose it, or you can let yourself be beat. I really hope Massey Chargers is doing the former here. You know, both teams are strong. Toroa has shown, according to the score, that they're slightly stronger. But what we really want to see from Massey is a fight to the end.
Absolutely.
Here we go, Toroa! Big chase!
Great pull from Abby Liddell, it looks.
Huge chase from Toroa. They've got Massey right on their own end zone. This is a really scary place to be in as a handler, especially with the wind gusting.
And with that changing wind, they've set up a cup zone with Abby Liddell trying to assassinate.
High stall count, miscommunication.
That's some really, really well-structured defense. They set up those 3 players to form a kind of cup around the Massey offense, and then recognize that Jonas Holman is a threat in that handler space, and so dedicated a player to marking them. Instead of working forwards, Abby Liddell bounces the disc. Back off Callum Shimon. And Hugo Swinson threads one through the middle for the score and for the game. Emily McCauley-Scott to close that one out for Otago Toroa, going 13-4 over the Massey Chargers. A huge, huge win for the Toroa side. Some great work from the Massey Chargers, but in the end, not quite enough to keep them as competitive as they would like. Well done to both those teams. Such a great display of Ultimate here for the 3rd game of the first day of the New Zealand Tertiary Ultimate Championships in beautiful Kirikiriroa, Hamilton. Supported by University and Tertiary Sport New Zealand and proudly brought to you by the team at Ulti TV. If you like what you see, don't be afraid to give us your spare change. Patreon.com/UltiTV. Until next time, my name is Blair Monroe.
And I'm Kisa Valenti.
And we will be back with you for the next game very shortly.
Ulti.tv